Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to start the called meeting to order for the Finance Governance Committee for Jan 9, 2024. And Madam Clerk, roll call and posting the agenda.
Member Tehran.
Here.
Chair Zaragoza.
Here.
Member Wasua is not here at the moment, but will be joining the meeting momentarily. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on January 2nd, 2023. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, please join me in saluting the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. So, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item? Not on the agenda?
Mayor.
Chair Zaragoza, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you. So then our first item is the D1. This is a report. This is C1, City Clerk Department, approval of the minutes, recommendation that the Finance and Governance Committee approve the minutes of the December 12, 2023 regular meeting as presented.
I will move to accept the minutes as presented.
And I'll second that. Please vote.
Motion carries 2-0.
Thank you. Our next item is D1. This is Finance Department, subject accounting and finance reporting risk assessment update. Recommendation that the Finance Governance Committee receive the risk assessment update regarding accounting and financial reporting as part of the internal control integrated framework pursuant to City of Oxnard Finance Policy FPOL and .05, and recommend the staff forward this presentation to the City Council. And we have our Finance Director. Councilman, any questions on this item?
I'm just hoping that we can maybe get a brief synopsis on the item ahead of us so that the general public and folks watching this recorded understand what it is that's in front of us.
Thank you. Good evening. And we also have the Jennifer Iraukai, or Internal Controls Manager, on the line to address any specific questions. But this item is a receive and file. It's an informational item for the council. And basically what it's highlighting is all the work that the city has been doing since back 2014, when there was a significant amount of audit findings in the single audit report. Since then, the city engaged external consultants as internal auditors to perform a fraud and risk assessment for the city, and from those work recommendations are being implemented. And at this moment, from those 111 findings, there's currently only 2 of them that are outstanding. That means that the city has made improvements in implementing internal controls to secure and to support the financial reporting of the city, and to make sure that all the internal controls requirements are being met. And I'll be happy to address any other questions you may have.
Mr. Javier, one quick question. I know the council member asked a little bit brief explanation. Can you explain the COSO, the control environment process? I think that's really, really great for control for the financial status.
Yes, I'll provide a quick highlight, but basically the control, the stands COSO is a framework that allows to establish those internal controls with certain specific parameters that are defined by the federal government when they're trying to evaluate certain programs that are being awarded to these different entities. And all these internal control assessments that we prepare here in the city, basically we just follow that framework to make sure that we're in compliance with all of them.
So it talks about the risk assessment and then the control activities and information and then monitoring the programs, which I think it's good. It's a good flow chart, for the internal controls or framework of the city financial information.
And it's a process that you're never done. It's a continuous improvement process. So we're always going to be looking for and reviewing that we are compliant and meeting those internal control requirements.
Mm-hmm. Councilman, any additional questions?
Yes, thank you. And I just hope that folks understand and appreciate the work that you pointed out right now. We're in the 14-15 fiscal year. There were 111 single audit findings where a handful is problematic. 111 is, almost unprecedented. And now in the fiscal year we're looking at here in front of us for 22-23, when we have it down to 2 findings. From 111 to 2, if it was unprecedented to have 111, I hope folks can also understand the immense amount of work that went to getting that down to 2 for an organization the size of the city of Oxnard. Mm-hmm. 111 single audit findings suggest a number of issues with our internal controls and our record keeping, et cetera, within the city that were happening during that time. And now in the current fiscal year we're in, and since then, the improvements that have happened from that. And when it comes to internal controls, I hope folks also can appreciate what that means. When people ask the question, where are my tax dollars going? How are they spending the money? What are they doing? Internal controls, when folks are worried that there's impropriety or there are not systems in place to catch when things are happening, I use the example of like a snack bar or a cash box for like a little league or a PTA, where if you just have a physical cash box, internal controls are, there's always 2 people working with a cash box. Nobody's ever left by themselves. And the same people who accept money are not the same people who count the money, and the same people who count the money are not the same people who deposit that money. And that way there are multiple eyes and multiple roles all along that process, from receiving the money to it being deposited to where it's supposed to go. And every step along the way is an internal control. And that's a small example within the city of Oxnard and other organizations. Internal controls are being able to monitor and keep an eye on what we need to do to make sure things are being done above board. And audit findings are ways for us to continue to improve that, as you mentioned, make sure we're operating in the way that we should for the benefit of the public, and making sure that our funding that has been entrusted with the city staff is being done properly. So I appreciate your explanation on that and for this update on this item. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Mr. CFO, so we're going really basically in 23-24 from a risk assessment, full scope, to a targeted risk assessment. What I think is really important, that we continue looking at potential, errors and potential items that we can correct, which I think is excellent, for the next fiscal year. Can you share a little bit about that, what we're going to be looking for? I think you were looking at targeted risks like grants and purchasing cards and vendor maintenance and capital assets.
That's correct. So the scope of the risk assessment basically evaluate 8 areas, and we were hoping that we will be able to do the 8 areas in a single fiscal year. But with the implementation of the new enterprise resource program, the ERP, it was not feasible. So we basically broke the risk assessment in two blocks of areas. This year we've completed purchasing, accounts receivable for general billing, general ledger and capital assets. And for the next fiscal year, actually calendar year is how we use program this, starting in a couple of weeks. We're going to be looking at the other 4 areas. It's going to include grants. We're going to be looking at purchasing cards, vendor master data to make sure that the vendors that we pay are the actual vendors that we have contract with, and or capital assets.
Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, the record show that Councilman Basua just to join us.
Yes, Mayor. Please let the record show that Councilmember Basua joined the meeting at 5:10 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on this item?
No comments, thank you.
So, you're good? So, motion to...
Excuse me, Chair.
Any speakers on this item?
There's no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you. So need a motion to
I'll,
forward to the city council?
yeah, I'll move to forward this to city council.
And I'll go ahead and second that.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Javier.
Thank you.
Our next item is, this is a city manager's department with the whistleblower activity report. Recommendation the Finance and Government Committee receive and file an update and the city whistleblower hotline. And we have Sherry Klima. Oh,
Hi, sorry, Annie Jensen. I'm available to answer any questions you have on the whistleblower program.
any questions on this item? Council member or councilwoman? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Would you be willing to just give a quick summary on the program and the agenda item?
Sure. So this is a semi-annual activity report. We bring it every 6 months to the committee. Our city's whistleblower hotline is intended for either residents or employees to file reports if they have any concerns about financial fraud, waste, or abuse. We have an exterior auditing agency, or internal auditing agency, actually, who reviews them, and then they rank them as to whether they have validity, and then they're prioritized or either sent to the departments for action. And this is a summary, so we are letting you know that since the last report, which was in early June through mid-December at the time of this publication, we received 21 reports, and these are the summaries of what we received. And they were all found by our internal auditor to have not merit or relevance. They're not fiscal related.
So Jenny, right?
Annie.
Annie, excuse me, okay. Well, Annie, I understand that the high are $75,000 and the medium is $25,000 and below $25,000 is actually stays within the company that's actually representing us, correct?
Yes, and low and medium, I think both have that same cutoff, so it depends on the specifics.
Low
of the
and medium,
complaint.
the 25,000.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So we're, for a city our size, we're doing very, very good,
Yes.
I think. It's a good report, and I think it's important that any employee has a right to call in, and it can be confidential, not reported, and
Yes, that's correct. And it's also good to know that it's very visible. 21 individuals who wanted to file a report were able to file it, all remained anonymous, and can feel free to say what they need to say.
And we want the employees to report any wrongdoings, which I think is really important.
Agreed.
Thank you so much for that. No?
Thank you for the report.
So motion to submit this to the city council.
Excuse me, Chair.
Any speakers on this item?
There are no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you.
I believe, Mayor, we have a recommendation receive and file for the Finance and Governance Committee, so I don't think this.
Oh, it's a receive and file? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go from there then. Correct? Okay, our last item is a city attorney. This is consideration of request for future council agenda item. Recommendation the Finance and Governance Committee consider whether to place a future council agenda resolution requested by Councilmember Valenzuela Zavala affirming the city of Oxnard supports the House Resolution 786 and to call for an immediate ceasefire on the Israeli-Gaza conflict. And before we call any speakers on this item, Mr. City Attorney, can you share a couple of information for our public? Because we have a lot of people here at in the council chamber, so I'd like you to go ahead and read some statements, and I want everybody to listen to. This is really important.
Sure, and to begin, just to explain for everybody here that this item is before this committee pursuant to the council's procedures, adopted procedures manual, and the policy in that manual is intended to provide an orderly means through which an individual council member can raise an issue for discussion and possible city council direction or action. And once a request like that is made, and Councilmember Valenzuela Zavala made that request at a recent council meeting, the request shall be referred to a council committee, and if a majority of the committee agrees that the city council should consider the item, then it will be placed on a future city council meeting agenda.
Okay.
So before we begin taking public speakers, Mr. Chair, I would like to read a statement about decorum at our meeting. Meetings of Oxnard's legislative bodies, such as this committee, are limited public forums during which the city strives to provide an open, safe atmosphere and promote robust public debate. Members of the public, however, must comply with state law, as well as the city's laws and procedures, and may not actually disrupt the orderly conduct of these meetings. The public, for example, may not shout or use amplifying devices, must submit speaker cards and speak during their allotted time, may not create a physical disturbance, may not speak on matters unrelated to issues within the jurisdiction of the legislative body or the agenda item at hand, and may not cause threats to public safety. Applause, booing, or similar behavior is not permitted. The adopted meeting procedures direct the presiding officer to preserve strict order and decorum at all legislative body meetings, and state law allows the removal of persons disrupting meetings so that city business can be conducted. The meeting procedures will be applied in a viewpoint-neutral manner. State law provides that if willful interruptions by members of the audience render the orderly conduct of a meeting infeasible, and order cannot be restored by removing individuals who are willfully interrupting the meeting, the legislative body may order the meeting room cleared and continue in session.
Thank you. And again, it's really important that no clapping and please respect the speakers. And Councilmember, you want to share a couple of words before we start?
Thank you. I believe we had a request for hard copies of the resolution language that's proposed tonight to be available for the public. Do we have those available?
Yes, we do, Councilmember Turan.
And where can members of the public find those?
Right in the front.
They are here.
They're up here by this red
Yes.
binder? Okay, thank you. So I hope folks who haven't had a chance to review the resolution language, I believe it's just a page and a little bit more, can do so up here. There are hard copies for review, and that may inform your comment before we get to you on the list. Thank you for printing those out, Madam Clerk.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So what I'm going to do, because we have a lot of speakers, ladies and gentlemen, we have about 60-some speakers. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call 5 people to start off with, and you can line right in front of the podium. And as I call your names, you can go ahead. You got 3 minutes. You do not have to use your 3 minutes, but 3 minutes is the max. And we're going to start off with Maha Riza, Maha R-I-Z-V-E, followed by Carla Alejandra, and number 3, Cassandra, and then Isabel Payne, and Jasmine Cameron. Maha Riza, are they here or virtually?
Chair Zaragoza, Maha Rizvi is currently not available virtually or in person, but Carla Alejandra is here in person.
Carla Alejandra, you got 3 minutes.
Hi, so I'm not going to take a lot of time, honestly, because mostly we're here because it's really, honestly, it's a little silly that only 3 people make such a decision as to have something like this, whether it is or is not included in a city meeting. That's a little ridiculous. It absolutely should be an agenda item. Y'all should be taking a stand, a side on it. And Mayor, it's okay, you can say Palestine. It's not gonna bite you,
Okay.
okay? It's not Israeli-Gaza conflict, it's the genocide on Palestine.
That-
And
that's- Go ahead.
it's my time, thank you.
Go ahead.
So it's just that. It absolutely should be an item. Y'all should absolutely have it at the next or future city meeting. And that's it. I'll let everyone else that is here to talk.
Thank you so much. The next speaker virtually or person is Cassandra, followed by Isabel Payne. Cassandra?
Cassandra is not here right now, and the next speaker, Isabel Payne, is currently available virtually.
Virtually, okay. Isabel, you got 3 minutes virtually.
Isabel, please press *6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, committee members. My name is Isabel Payne. I'm a week short of 26 years old. I firstly come to you today as a citizen of the county. I was born and raised here in Ventura County. Most of my father's side of my family lives here, so I've had the privilege of seeing them often throughout my life. In my experience, having the right to move freely between cities to visit my family, engage in sports, and attend events has made my experience here great. Conversely, in Gaza, already illegally contained Palestinians who have not been granted the right to return to their home villages that are now in occupied territory are suffering from constant displacement, severe homelessness, and lack of basic needs such as water, food, adequate clothing, medical care. The list goes on. Can you imagine that? This is all not their fault, but the fault of the illegal occupation known as Israel. I secondly come to you as a healthcare worker, specifically in mental health. Trauma and PTSD are amongst the many severe mental health conditions that, without treatment, can persist even beyond that individual's life, causing generational trauma. In Gaza, it's said that there's no PTSD because the trauma Palestinians experience are ongoing. Trauma is their baseline under the occupation. Imagine living under constant oppression and violence, having hopes for your future only to be met with death so early in life, being illegally detained before you've entered high school, being subjected to unspeakable measures of torture, losing several members of your entire family, losing your entire family. Those are just some of the many things that Palestinians have experienced throughout their lifetimes, from birth or even pre-birth up until today. Lastly, and most importantly, I come to you as a human being who values the lives of indigenous communities, including those in Palestine and the Palestinian diaspora. This is why I strongly urge you to advocate and to support a ceasefire resolution, not because it has any impact on your actual lives, but because it has the impact of so many communities here in Oxnard and in the greater country, as well as the greater globe. I strongly urge you to advocate and vote for this ceasefire. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Jasmine Cameron, virtually or in person.
Chair Zaragoza, Jasmine is currently not available.
Oh, she's here?
Oh,
Okay.
she's here, sorry.
Come on up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hasmeen. I'm requesting that the Oxnard Finance and Governance Committee add HR 786, ceasefire resolution, as an agenda item. I like to use my time by sharing a snippet of history outlining events prior to October 7th. In November 1947, the UN General Assembly voted to partition Palestine between Arabs and Jews. Although Jews constituted only 30% of the population, much of it by illegal settlement, the UN plan proposed for them a 56% slice of Palestine. Arabs, who made up 70% of the population, were to get only 44% of their own homeland. On May 14, 1948, Israel declared itself to be an exclusive Jewish state. 11 minutes later, President Truman extended U.S. recognition to Israel. Thus, 31 years after British promises of independence for Palestine, the Arabs witnessed the ultimate betrayal, the establishment of a new colony by the world's big powers controlled not by Middle Eastern natives, but by Europeans. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinian Arabs who had lived in peace on their own land were destined never to see their homeland again. What had begun as the Zionist movement's clever manipulation of American and British politicians ended as a mechanism for the death and suffering of countless numbers of human beings in the Middle East. Please note that this is an excerpt from former Senator James Abarek's report, The Relentless Israeli Propaganda Machine. In March of 1948, Plan D was authorized by Israeli leader David Ben-Gurion. This was part of a planned strategy to displace indigenous Palestinians from their homeland. It is the blueprint for the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. During Nakba of 1948, Israel murdered over 15,000 Palestinians. Flash forward to 2024 today, Israel, with the financial support of the US and the UK, has massacred over 23,000 Palestinians. We as taxpayers are complicit in this genocide while history repeats itself. In the future, my descendants, your descendants, and our descendants will look back at this moment and ask, did you support the genocide of Palestinian children, mothers, fathers, elders, babies? Did you support decades of violent occupation and displacement? Did you call for ceasefire? Yes or no? Please take a stand and hold this country accountable. Cease fire now. Thank you, council members, for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jasmine Severi. Virtually, or is she here?
Chair Zaragoza, Jasmine is not available virtually or in person.
Okay, our next speaker is Alexis.
Yes, Alexis is available virtually.
Okay,
Alexis, please press *6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, can I be?
we can
Can you
hear
hear
you.
me?
Go ahead, yes.
All right, my name is Alexis. I'm just going to start out by giving you some numbers because I know politicians like numbers. So, according to Al Jazeera, there are about over 23,000 people who have been massacred in Gaza, mostly children, about over 10,000. Another 59,000 have been injured, and approximately just over 82,000 total casualties have been reported. That being said, that number is still changing every second of each and every day, so those numbers are already outdated. Let me compare those numbers for you to the total population of Oxnard, which currently, from the census of the year 2022, to the population is 200,415. Comparing the total casualties of 82,310 to the population of Oxnard, that's about 41.1% of total casualties compared to the population of Oxnard. Imagine almost half of the population of Oxnard being injured, killed, mostly children, and displaced. Now, the Gaza Strip is about 140.9 square miles. That is the same, or approximately the same combination of Oxnard, Camarillo, Ventura, and Thousand Oaks combined at about 146 square miles. Now, imagine the constant bombardment and attacks and massacres of that all of that area of Ventura County, being that most of the population of Ventura County lives in those cities, again, being constantly attacked and terrorized by Israel, that is being Israel and their weapons that are being funded by mostly entirely by the U.S. It's a little silly, I think, that this, again, as someone mentioned before, that this is only being considered where this should have been an agenda item in the first place. So giving you those numbers, I just come here to say to basically consider this request and demand a ceasefire. And yeah, that's it.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shauna Steiner. Is she virtually or here? Here? Okay. Got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, I have no pleasantries for you. I
echo the sentiments that it's silly that we're pleading with you to stop the massacre of what was 2.2 million people stuffed into a strip of land which looks actually similar to this. I want you to look at it and imagine it decimated. I don't know why we have to run you through hypotheticals. You all have families. Do you not? Can you imagine sleeping with your family in your home? Maybe you make it, your whole house gets bombed. You look for your children or your grandchildren under rubble. I believe it was Councilwoman Basua at the last council meeting, which called sentiments tying the call for the Oxnard Police Department getting trained by the OPD as inappropriate. And I want to call attention to the fact that that implies that the genocide and all the horrific scenes we've seen on our phones unfold are appropriate. I just think it's so ironic to tone police. There's no pleasant way to go about this. I am at a loss for words. It's simple. You could make history. I'm done. But lastly, I'll say I don't know what is holding you in your chairs since you clearly lack spines. So yeah, ceasefire, please. It's the least you could do. Shayna Steiner.
Okay, Chris Barton, is he virtually or here? Chris?
Chair Zaragoza, Chris is not available virtually or in person.
Okay, our next one is Daniela Aguirre. Virtually or here?
Daniela is available virtually.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Daniela, please press *6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. I'm speaking on the agenda item I'm asking for the adding of this agenda item on Palestine. I please ask of you to approve this item request to be added into future council agendas. It's just graphic. Like it's so devastating what's happening in Palestine, the genocide. Like, as you can see, it is a genocide. You don't see any Palestinian soldiers or front fighting off the strongly militarized funded military of the Israeli occupational forces on the Palestinian bombarded cities and refugee camps. And even with the whole history of what it's been, you studied it, how the previous a couple speakers back, the lady was saying, from after World War I, 1917, 1937, Great Britain kind of colonized Palestine, and it was by Arthur Balfour, who said, who promised establishment, to establish a Jewish homeland on Palestine, and it was like it's just it's throughout all of history, it's just been unfair, most recently right now, and you even see how the IOF even destructed with bulldozer tractors the homes and roads of Palestinian waterways, gas, and that just right there, there's so much bombardment, so much missile strikes, the white phosphorus, which is internationally banned, it's a illegal weapon, and they're just to use bulldozer, just shows their macabreness of how they're wiping out a society, a country that they're just deliberately destroying it, to take over like the little bit of land that they have of Gaza, the Palestinians, and civilians are getting shot left and right. Like for when there was a video of like these Palestinians going to get water aid, like just flour, and then they're being shot at from the Israeli military. It's just a horrible, despicable, abhorrent killing everywhere. 70% of Palestine's Gaza has been bombed.
30 seconds.
And you know, 109 Palestinian journalists have been killed by the IOF. You know, there's, imagine the wounded people, like, you know, 59,000 wounded already, like severely crippled, like forever. That's just like devastating. And the trauma that the people from Palestine are gonna have to carry on with now. I please ask for you to stand in solidarity for a ceasefire. I ask for you guys to
Thank you.
demand to.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Candace Robinson. Is she virtually or here? Present? Go on. Got 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would first like to say that I'm a resident here of Ventura County. I've lived here for 44 years. I am first generation on my mother's side, or first generation on my father's side, third generation on my mother's side. If anybody came to my home and told me, get out, there would be a fight. And I'm sure any of you would feel the same. I am requesting that you guys add this to the next agenda immediately. As the speaker, Alexis, had mentioned, the stats for the current ethnic cleansing and genocide that's going on, that's approximately 10,000 people a month dead over the last 3 months. This isn't a secret to anybody. Everybody's been watching this for the last 3 months and what's been happening over there. Specifically, I've been asked by Palestinian people, some of the journalists I've spoke to personally, exchanging messages, talking to live on Instagram, social media. They are begging Oxnard to stand up for them. They're begging California to stand up for them. They're begging the United States to stop funding Israel. And just so everybody knows that this is a ceasefire now. Everybody here is worried about Muslims getting attacked and the Jewish community getting attacked. Are you in immediate danger like the people of Gaza? Is anybody bombing your homes?
Ma'am, please address the chair.
Yes, sir. I apologize.
Thank you.
Nobody is in immediate danger here. Are there dangers? Yes. But it's going to be the supremists, the extremists, and the copycats to attack all of us. And it's all of us. It's not just those particular communities. We are asking for a ceasefire now so these people can get the medical aid that they need, the housing that they need. They're being starved. There's children, because of the trauma that they're experiencing, are now dying of heart attacks, infants, toddlers. And we need to do something about that. So again, the people of Gaza and Palestine, I have heard it specifically and directly from their mouths. Can you please help us? And they are asking all of us, please. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Larry Barberini, virtually or here?
Chair Zaragoza, Larry is available virtually.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Larry, please press *6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, Happy New Year to everyone, including those who disagree with me. Wherever disagreements are, I hope that everyone has a great New Year. I am urging this to be not be sent to the full council, unlike some other issues, even on those that I disagree with, on water rates, things like that. I think the council had more expertise with that than on this issue. But, if it does indeed go to the full council and for those present, I'd like to say that this is a matter of Israel as a democracy, the Palestinian Authority, and Gaza, with Hamas and the PA running those areas. They're not democracy. They've won maybe one election and none after that. Israel is multi-ethnic. They have Arabs in the government. It has all the freedoms that you would hope a democracy would have. Hamas does not do that for its citizens in Gaza. nor the PA in the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, so-called West Bank. The Hamas targets innocents. They have for years, including October 7th, the biggest attack against Jews since the Holocaust, where they burned babies, sexual violence against women, decapitated people. Israel, for years, have sent flyers over to the civilians in Gaza, and now even created websites to warn them to get out of areas, and they've facilitated getting out of areas of war. You don't see the Hamas and all those guys doing that. Israel does great, as much as anybody can, to pinpoint so they do not hit innocents, but it's awful hard when Hamas commits war crimes by hiding behind their own innocence, the poor Palestinians, in hospitals where they have rocket launchers and all that, in hospitals and schools, in schools. It's not to choke you up here. There's an old saying that I want to get out that you might have heard of
30
before.
seconds.
If the Palestinians, thank you, if the Palestinians gave up their arms, there'd be no more war. If the Israelis gave up their weapons, there'd be no more Israel. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So now we're going to have speakers that are here. So I'm going to call 5 people at the same time so we can line up and expedite. You got 3 minutes each. I'm going to call Shauna Steiner would be the first one. She already went? Okay. And then we have Adriana Romero, followed by Mitch Lilly, followed by Jacob Trevor and Sierra Michael. So Adriana Romero is the first one, and then you can line up right behind, and then Mitch Lilly, followed by Jacob Trevor, and then Sarah Mitchell.
Thank you.
Romero, you're first then.
It's Ariadna Romero. Thank you. Good evening. I am a Ventura County community member. I am here to demand this committee agendize and pass the proposed resolution for the ceasefire in Palestine at the next Oxnard City Council meeting on January 16th. I am here to remind you that as elected city council members, you took an oath to support and defend the country and the state of California's constitutions against all foreign and domestic enemies. Israel has proven itself to be a foreign enemy to democracy across the globe by committing countless war crimes and crimes against humanity through ramped up genocidal retaliation on an innocent civilian population, illegal occupation of land, sea, air, water, and all basic necessities, including life-saving humanitarian aid, which it tightly controls in Gaza, all while expecting American taxpayers, including Oxnard City taxpayers, to foot the bill. We are over 90 days into this genocide. What is taking you so long? Over 30,000 Palestinian civilians have been murdered, and many more are being starved to death as I read this. Every 20 hours, a journalist is targeted and killed in Gaza, a war crime. And every 10 minutes, a child loses a limb if they are lucky enough to make it out alive. Roughly 15% of lone soldiers committing these atrocities on behalf of Israel's occupation forces are from California. Not to mention 65,000 violent illegal settlers in the West Bank are American citizens. We do not want these domestic traitors committing acts of terrorism on behalf of Israel back in our communities. You have a duty to fulfill as city council members. Our children, the future leaders of this community, are watching your actions. We the people have the power. Align yourself with humanity and take a bold stance when crimes against humanity are being committed in this moment. Our hearts are deeply broken. The war on children needs to end immediately. Please agendize and pass the proposed ceasefire resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Mitch Lilly.
Hello. My name is Mitch Lilly. I am a Ventura County resident, an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and I'm here to strongly urge this committee to formally agendize and pass the proposed resolution for the ceasefire in Palestine at the next Oxnard City Council meeting on the 16th. The ongoing genocide in Palestine has seen over 22,000 killed, approximately 70% of which are women and children. That works out to 1 in 100 Palestinians. A ceasefire would immediately help to slow these senseless deaths. Personally, I ascribe to the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, who said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." For me, that is more than enough to recognize this genocide for what it is, part of a dangerous settler colonial project upheld by the US ruling class and military-industrial complex. But apparently for some members of this council, injustice anywhere is injustice anywhere else but here. So why does this matter to the people of Oxnard? I will tell you. Oxnard police have traveled to Israel, where they are trained in the use of military equipment against the civilian population and conditioned to treat marginalized people as potential threats. They return to our city and apply these lessons. The bombs, guns, and bullets that Zionists use to carry out this genocide against Palestinians are produced and sold by US corporate weapons manufacturers, many of whom have offices in the area. The corporations that support the Zionist state, either through funds or speech, operate within the city. Some of them have direct responsibility for the rental cost crisis that we are also facing. Finally, I'll remind you of your duty as Oxnard City Council members. Among the city's main functions outlined in its procedures manual are to recognize and support the city's diverse neighborhoods and population, and more importantly, to act as a responsible member of the greater region. Cities throughout California and the world have stood on the right side of history and signed on to this resolution. The people of Ventura County and Oxnard stand with Palestine. We demand an immediate ceasefire. We demand a total lifting of the siege on Gaza. We demand the immediate release of Palestinian political prisoners. We demand that the Oxnard Police Department immediately end their deadly exchange program and training program with the IOF. And we demand that the United States never send another dime to the settler colonial entity known as Israel, and that they use our tax money on things that will benefit us, like jobs, education, and healthcare. The people of Oxnard clearly stand with Palestine. The question is, do you stand with the people of Oxnard? Free Palestine. Thank you.
Jacob Trevor.
All right, I just want to start off by saying it's a little ridiculous that we even have to show up here and talk about this. I don't know what you guys seem to know that the other nations and the United Nations General Assembly doesn't know. I'm not sure why you guys can't just get this on and get this ceasefire going. So I just want to say that right off the bat. Secondly, it's clear that this council doesn't listen to its constituents, so I'm just going to use the words of others for my 2 minutes. Maybe you'll listen to somebody else. So Article 2 of the Genocide Convention defines genocide as any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily harm or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or in part. Since October 7th last year, 23,000 Palestinians have died in the Israeli genocide, in which the Associated Press quotes historian and bombing campaign expert Robert Pape. He says, "Gaza is one of the most intensive civilian punishment campaigns in history. It now sits comfortably in the top quartile of the most devastating bombing campaigns ever." IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari stated flatly, "The emphasis is on damage and not on accuracy." Another defense official told Israel's Channel 13 News, "Gaza will eventually turn into a city of tents. There will be no buildings." Benjamin Netanyahu has called on Gazan residents to leave and stated that he will operate forcefully everywhere, and even referred to the biblical story of Amalek, where every man, woman, child, and donkey was killed. The Washington Post analyzed satellite imagery, airstrike data, and UN damage assessments, and interviewed experts in munitions and aerial warfare, concluding that the evidence shows Israel has carried out its war in Gaza at a pace and level of devastation that exceeds any recent conflict. They have destroyed more buildings in far less time than were destroyed during the battles for Aleppo from 2013 to 2016, and the US-led campaigns in Mosul, Iraq, and Raqqa, Syria in 2017. Michael Link, former UN special reporter in occupied Palestine, said the scale of Palestinian civilian deaths in such a short period of time appears to be the highest civilian casualty rate in the 21st century. During the 2014 to 2017 campaign in Iraq, in Iraq, the US-led coalition carried out nearly 15,000 strikes across the country. The Israeli military has openly stated they have conducted over 22,000 strikes in a single week. CNN quotes Mark Garlasco, former chief of high-value targeting at the Pentagon. He said the density of Israel's bombardment in Gaza has not been seen since Vietnam. You'd have to go back to the Vietnam War to make a comparison. Secretary of State for Middle Eastern Affairs, Barbara Leaf, said the death tolls being reported in Gaza are conservative. We think they're very high. Frankly, it could be even higher than those
Thank
that
you.
are being cited.
Thank you.
Free Palestine.
No clapping, please. Now, I'm going to call Sarah, but I'm also going to call Diego Magana, Davina Garcia, Jasmine Cameron, Ryan Compek, and my apologies if I don't, and also Mandouelame. Please get in line here. So, Sarah, go ahead. You got 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Sara Michel. I'm a Palestinian Mexican and an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation and Amplifying Palestinian Voices. I have been a Ventura County resident for over 20 years, and I come before you today as a representative of my community, insisting that this committee formally agendize and pass the proposed resolution for the ceasefire in Palestine at the next Oxnard City Council meeting on January 16th. I'm here today to speak on behalf of Plesia Al-Aqad, Bisan Aouda, Motaz Azeza. I am here to speak on behalf of over 100 journalists who have been murdered since October 7th, on behalf of over 20,000 martyred Palestinians, 30,000 injured, and 1.9 million displaced. There is a genocide, a systematic ethnic cleansing going on by the colonial Zionist state of Israel. As I give my statement, bombs are dropping, hundreds of bodies are trapped under the rubble, and thousands are starving, with the help of US aid to Israel. With temperatures dropping and rain pouring in, more and more Palestinians are being martyred. Israel has ensured no aid will pass through. It has been 3 months of amputations, surgeries, and medical procedures without any anesthesia. 3 menstrual cycles with no sanitary products. 3 months and a whole new year of bombings and constant terror. We as a community, as a country, have to stand up and use our voices for those who are being silenced. We can no longer be complicit to the genocide happening. We have to speak against the injustices and the war crimes committed by the colonial Zionist state. We must take action. The people of Ventura County and Oxnard stand with Palestine. We demand an immediate and unequivocal ceasefire. We demand a total lifting of the siege on Gaza. We demand the immediate release of Palestinian political prisoners. We demand that the Oxnard Police Department immediately end their deadly exchange program training program with the Israeli oppressive forces. And we demand that the United States never send another dime to the settler colonial entity of Israel, and that they use our tax money on jobs, education, healthcare, and food for our working class. We demand that our council adopt a position which represents their constituents. Viva, viva Palestina.
Okay, Diego Magana.
Good evening. The violence and injustice towards Palestinians is plain and obvious. We will not be gaslit into thinking that it's too complicated to speak on, that the suffering is exaggerated, that it isn't happening, or that we are in the wrong for speaking out against genocide. Although we can't solve the world's problems by releasing a statement, calling for a ceasefire and calling out specific injustices as they come up is the first step towards healing and true peace. After we call for a ceasefire, we need to continue this conversation. How does this ceasefire look when it's put into practice and in our city policies? How do we sever all ties to this genocide? We must be willing and brave enough to go down that path to its logical end. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, David, Davina Garcia, excuse me.
Hello, my name is Davina, and I was born and raised in Oxnard. I'm here to strongly urge this council to place the resolution and pass said resolution for an immediate ceasefire in Palestine at the next Oxnard City Council meeting on January 16th. Since October 7th, 2023, what has now been 94 days, Israel has murdered over 23,000 Palestinians and injured over 60,000 Palestinians and has displaced over 1.9 million Palestinians. I want to remind the committee that these statistics represent human lives. people with hearts just like ours, who have aspirations and dreams just like all of us here. The violence Palestinians have been subject to by Israel since 1948 has been done with impunity, and this bombing campaign and siege of Gaza is and has been endorsed by Western powers such as the United States. Even if Israel decided to stop the bombing campaign, the siege of Gaza alone is genocidal. Israel has severely limited or completely cut off the supply of food, water, fuel, telecommunications, and humanitarian aid into Gaza, which has led to starvation, the spreading of diseases, and the closure of hospitals that provide essential medical aid and equipment, such as incubators for newborn babies. The connections the United States, as well as the city of Oxnard, has with Israel and the IOF cannot go unsaid. The United States sends billions of dollars of aid to Israel every single year using our taxpayer money. United States corporate weapons manufacturers create the weaponry that is being used to kill Palestinian civilians. The IOF has an ongoing and expansive training program with police departments across the nation, and as I'm sure you are aware of, with the Oxnard Police Department. United States politicians, both in Senate and the House of Reps, as well as genocide Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, support Israel in this genocide against Palestinians and have spread numerous lies and false accusations through dozens of bills and public statements on the reality of the situation. Language matters. This is not a war, this is genocide. This is not a conflict, this is genocide. Anti-Zionism does not equate to anti-Semitism, and resistance does not equate to terrorism. I want to remind our local politicians that the work you do and the work that you fail to do holds the ability to perpetuate violence. This adoption of a resolution for the city of Oxnard's stance on an immediate ceasefire is long overdue. And I want to strongly urge the council to start representing your constituents. The people stand with Palestine.
Thank you. Jasmine Cameron. Jasmine Cameron. Okay, I don't see you. Jasmine. Ryan.
Jasmine already spoke, Mayor.
Oh, okay, thank you. Ryan.
I'll pronounce my name. Yeah, Ryan Kampanik. It's a Slavic last name. I know it's a little difficult. Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
No problem. I want to do a different tact with you guys. So, bear with me. I want you, who doesn't like a good time travel movie? I know you guys, come on, you can raise your hand, council members. No? No? Maybe? Okay. So, do you ever wonder what you would have done if you lived in the 1850s and you saw a black man crying while he was whipped, while his slave master sold off his family? Or what you would have done if you lived in Nazi Germany in the 1930s or 40s? Or what you would have done if you were there on the bus with Rosa Parks in 1954? We'll get back to that. But let me tell you a little bit about my family. So I've lived in Ventura County for 18 years. I would have loved to live here my whole life, but I was a military brat, moved around quite a bit. My father, who was a fervent Israel supporter, served 28 years in the US Navy, retired as a captain. We were stationed in Italy, and he was working for NATO in the mid-1990s. During this time, my father had to go to Bosnia with NATO troops to end the Bosnian Civil War. My father saw the Bosnian genocide firsthand, with over 33,000 civilians killed. He knows a genocide when he sees one, and he says what's going on in Palestine right now is a genocide. This is a genocide. He is horrified at this ethnic cleansing and what our government is enabling Israel to do. Many of your constituents are Christian, just like my father. If you believe Jesus died for your sins, you cannot be silent while his homeland is bombed into oblivion and his worshipers are killed. And remember my question at the start. If you do not support a ceasefire now, then I guarantee you would not have done one goddamn thing back then to stop what happened in the history of all the horrible things that we've done. I urge you to not only support a ceasefire, but demand an end to the $10.7 million a day military aid package for this internationally recognized apartheid state being funded by our hard-earned taxpayer money. Thank you, and peace be upon you all.
Thank you. Our MAN-DOUH, did he speak already? Oh, I'm sorry. Go on. You're up. And by the way, just before you start, I'm going to be calling Shantae next. and Ryan Drury followed by, and then Mr. Campbell and Elaine Yompin and Elisa V. I can't. So get in line. Elisa UNTSU. Go ahead.
Thanks. And before we go to our next block of speakers, I just want to remind folks, anyone who has arrived and didn't hear it announced earlier, if you haven't had the opportunity to review the resolution language, we have hard copies here in the front near the city clerk to the left of the red binder. So if you'd like to review the language and that helps inform your comments, I invite folks to review those. Thank you.
I'm sorry, 3 minutes.
No problem.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mamdouh Al-Alami, and I am a Ventura resident since 1987. But before that, the first 14 years of my life, I lived in Palestine, and I lived in Gaza, and I lived in El Rimal. My grandfather, in 1948, he had to flee his home. He had to leave 700 acres of land, leave his home and his family and his children because he was gunpoint. Either leave your land, leave your home, or you'll be shot by Israel forces. He left and fled, and today, unfortunately, 76 years later, with all the social media that we have, with all the power that our human nature have, we are falling short again. We're falling short to be humans, to actually stand for justice for all, as you have pointed out with our national flag, right? We say justice for all. If we really want to honor that word and justice for all, this is really insane that we're just discussing putting this on an agenda. This is a no-brainer. This is common sense. This should not be just hearing to be placed on an agenda. It should be placed immediately. As a Gazan, as a human being, as one whose family is suffering every day, and I wake up every morning to a text from my cousins, from my hundreds of cousins and family members and uncles to see if they're alive or not. This is the life we're living here. This is what we're doing today. Are we going to be human? All we're asking is for humanity. All we're asking is to stop killing those civilians. All we're asking you to do is to sleep on that pillow tonight, knowing that you have made the right decision, knowing that you have upheld justice. And you have to answer for it. You don't have to answer to us. You can see the number, the sheer number of people here to speak on behalf of the genocide, on behalf of those people like my grandfather, my immediate grandfather, whom now 2.2 million people are displaced. All our homes are destroyed. My home that I lived in 14 years is destroyed with people in it. Many of my family members have been killed and martyred. Yet, we're here to just discuss putting an item on an agenda? I urge you to be human tonight. I urge you to actually have the guts, have the courage, have that ability to uphold that justice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shante.
Hello, my name is Shanti Sandosham. I'm a Ventura County resident, and I'm here to strongly urge this committee to formally agendize and pass the proposed resolution for the ceasefire in Palestine at the next Oxnard City Council meeting on January 16th. The Zionist state has murdered over 23,000 Palestinians, severely injured over 60,000 Palestinians, and displaced 1.9 million Palestinians in the last few months alone. These people are not numbers. The majority of those killed have been women and children. This is unacceptable. Our demand that the Council adopt a position to pass the proposed resolution for the ceasefire in Palestine is the bare minimum. We demand an immediate ceasefire. We demand a total lifting of the siege on Gaza. We demand the immediate release of Palestinian political prisoners. Do what is right and pass the ceasefire resolution. Free Palestine.
Ryan Jury.
My name is Ryan. I'm a lifelong Ventura resident. I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and I'm here tonight to strongly demand, with the backing of all people of conscience in this community, that this council immediately platform, agendize, and pass the proposed resolution for a ceasefire in Palestine at the soonest possible moment at the next Oxnard City Council meeting on January 16th. For the past 3 months, the Zionist regime of so-called Israel has been carrying out a genocide. They've dropped countless bombs, slaughtered Palestinians seeking refuge by sniper fire, imposed a total siege on the Gaza Strip, and too many other war crimes to count. In those months, your constituents, along with millions of others, have began mobilizing in the streets to call for an end to this brutal genocide. We pleaded with you 2 months ago to end the deadly exchange program that the IOF has with the Oxnard Police Department. At that meeting, you drew the line at name-calling, but you didn't draw the line at supporting genocide. The reason millions of people have taken to the streets and the reason the momentum only continues to grow is because the people understand that Palestinian liberation is the most urgent and important humanitarian cause of our lifetimes. This genocide is, of course, uncritically supported by the government that claims to speak in our name, by US policy and diplomatic cover at the UN. It's also supported by the US sending all the bombs and bullets so-called Israel needs to slaughter our Palestinian relatives. Some of those weapons manufacturers, such as Northrop Grumman, operate right here out of Oxnard with your support. Desmond Tutu said that to be neutral in the times of injustice, that means that you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Any elected official that kills this resolution for a ceasefire isn't just neutral. They're putting their thumb on the scale to continue 75 years of oppression, dispossession, expulsion, and genocide. Anyone who stands in the way of this resolution is aiding and abetting Zionism, not only there, but in our community as well. Anybody who doesn't support this resolution is greenlighting vigilante violence against our Arab and Muslim members of our community as well. All throughout history, the greatest crimes have needed people in positions of power and leadership to do nothing. Genocide and settler colonialism requires people like you to choose the side of the oppressor when given the opportunity to instead support liberation. It's a necessary tool of the maintenance of evil. Immediately adopting this ceasefire resolution is not only the only ethical decision, it is a popular position, as you can see by all of my friends behind me. You need to make clear to your constituents you are auditioning for the support of them, and you are not auditioning for the support of AIPAC and weapons manufacturers in our community. Those of us on the freedom side, those of us who fight for Palestinian liberation are not going anywhere. We are backed up by thousands in our community, millions in our country, and hundreds of millions around the world, and we are not going anywhere. We are not going to stop fighting until all of our demands are met. Free Palestine from the river to the sea.
Campbell, Madam Campbell.
My name is Ian Campbell, and I'm calling on the Oxnard City Council to put the ceasefire resolution on the next agenda and to pass it. As has been said before, that is the bare minimum. The purpose of this comment period is so that you can hear the voice of the people. The vast majority of the people in this room want this to be passed. They want it to be done as fast as possible. The vast majority of the people in the world, the vast majority of the countries in the world are on the side of Palestine, are on the side of justice. So you have a decision. You have a decision whether or not to be on the side of justice or whether or not to be on the side of genocide. That is up to you. My comments are going to be brief. I really don't have much patience for this, as many people have said. This is the bare minimum. We need to stop the bombs from being made and sent to Israel in this country. We need to stop our federal representatives in their genocide. They are complicit in this genocide. They are war criminals. We are coming to you because they are not listening to us. They are war criminals, and they will be tried. And it is up to you whether or not you will be on the side of war criminals or on the side of the people that you supposedly represent. Pass the resolution.
Okay, Elise. And then followed by Elaine.
Hi, my name's Elise. I live in Oxnard, and like most of the constituents in this room, I'm here to urge this committee to formally agendize and pass the proposed resolution for a ceasefire in Palestine at your January 16th council meeting. This demand becomes more urgent by the hour, as with each hour that passes, the death toll of more than 23,000 continues to rise. 93% of Gaza's population continues to experience crisis levels of starvation. The IDF continues to bomb Palestinians in areas it has designated as safe, continues to commit war crimes, bombing journalists, hospitals, schools, relief agencies, children, and children, and children. Sawar Rami, Muhammad, Fadl Hasuna, age 1, to name just 2. And none of this is new information. We've all seen it on our screens, yet it bears repeating because this must stop. So for the record, as a constituent, as a taxpayer, this city council's inaction on this matter does not represent me. The US sending billions of dollars in annual aid and emergency military funding to Israel, instead of distributing resources to address the systemic dehumanizing conditions here in the US, does not represent me. I demand that you represent your constituents by joining the city councils that have already called for a ceasefire in Palestine: Atlanta, Richmond, Oakland, Minneapolis, Detroit, Long Beach, California. And the speaker a few turns before me made the point that a ceasefire resolution should be made immediately, and I echo this sentiment. All we're asking for is humanity, and it's not something to wait for.
Thank you. Yep. Elaine, before I call Elaine, I'm also going to call John Caravel, and also Clarissa, Selig, and Valeria Redenzens, and also Nidal Baraket, and also Claudia Gonzalez. So, Elaine, go ahead.
Hello, and thank you all for the previous comments. My name is Elaine. I am an Oxnard resident and an organizer with the PSL and Answer Coalition. I'm here at this point to plead this committee to agendize and pass the proposed resolution for the ceasefire in Palestine at the next City Council meeting on January 16th. We have been witness for almost 100 days of a horrific genocide to the Palestinian people and a further escalation that threatens so many lives. There has been an overwhelming support for the Palestinian position across the United States, specifically here in California, and even more in the Oxnard area. Let's take that even further. As mentioned here today, in the United Nations, the US representative stands very alone at this point, backing Israel's crimes. When asked to explain this veto, Robert Wood blamed the Palestinian resistance for starting this war. That is not only incorrect factually and historically, but a simple look in the history of this country, of Palestine, and major reports, including Amnesty International's reports, will show us that Palestinian people have been under occupation for over 70 years. But this is also an inhumane position that disregards the atrocities that have happened for, like I said, decades. This veto tells the world that the United States wants to continue to go against human rights and is actively supporting the genocide of an entire community. I am present here today not only as a Latina, as a Peruana de descendencia indígena, but as a disabled young woman, a resident of Oxnard, a student, and a researcher. The occupation of Palestine can only lead to more deaths and mass disabling of this community. I beg you to understand, to have compassion as our elected officials. Dr. Sama Jabbar, Palestine's head of mental health services, said in 2019, critiquing calling what the Palestinian people suffer as PTSD because there is nothing post about their experience. Their trauma is repetitive, ongoing, and continuous. I ask you, how can we allow this to continue? How can we be detached from our humanity? How can we forget the interconnectedness of all the suffering of all oppressed people and marginalized people around the world and right here in Oxnard? So many individualistic practices say we don't owe each other anything. And I want to say we owe each other dignity. We owe each other humanity. We heard some propaganda here today about beheading of babies, for example, that has been debunked endlessly by multiple sources. Please hear the calls of the majority of the world, of your residents, the residents here and that are not present right now. Do not water down our ask to put this on the next agenda and to pass this resolution. Thank you.
Okay, John Caravel, followed by Clarissa. John.
Thank you.
My name is John Caravillo. I'm an organizer with the Ventura Tenants Union, and I'm a professor at Cal State Channel Islands. I want to be clear to start here. This is not just another narrative. This is not another side. This is reality. I recently heard from a professor colleague at a university in the West Bank in Palestine, and she spoke of the experiences she's had since the most recent escalation that has led to the ongoing US-funded genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. The university has gone completely online because parents fear their kids will be killed or imprisoned if they leave their enclave. If you're unfamiliar, settlers have long been encircling Palestinian villages in the West Bank, carving them into small enclaves. To travel from one to the other, or to the university, for instance, residents must pass several checkpoints where violent settlers and the military, who are armed to the teeth with weapons we help fund, enforce their movement. Now, over 30,000 dead, a blatant disregard for humanity, war crimes, rampant lies, misinformation, and dehumanization, and a genocide by the Zionist occupation forces. 75 years of apartheid, not just in Gaza, but in the West Bank and elsewhere in Palestine. And not just in 1948, not just in 1967, but right now. As US-funded bombs flatten Gaza and extend this ongoing genocide, Palestinians in the West Bank are being terrorized, imprisoned, and murdered. When a piece of shrapnel from a bomb landed in the village of my Palestinian colleagues, professor colleague's yard, right, in her village, they used this as an opportunity to burn down their generations-old olive grove, even stealing the remaining trees that survived. Okay, so this is not just some narrative. As my colleague says, we must understand these experiences of real people in the context of history and of a holistic picture of what's happening right now, right? Where we as a nation stand on this. We are funding these bombs, period. People's lives are not to be used as rhetorical pawns in some war game. Respect these people by doing the absolute bare minimum. Put this on the agenda and then pass it.
Clarissa?
Council members Basura, Zaragoza, and Tehran, my name is Clarice, and I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'm a resident of Ventura County, and my family has lived here for 30 years. I'm here to give public comment for consideration of request for future council agenda item for the ceasefire resolution. We were here in November to demand that you reject additional funding for the militarization of Oxnard PD, and we told you how this was directly related to the genocide that has been happening in Palestine since October 7th. But you scoffed at us, condescended to us, scolded us, but we know what we're talking about. We've been out in the streets and the community for the last 94 days, demanding an end to the genocide that the US is funding with our tax dollars and the militarization that fuels it. We're here today to demand that you push the ceasefire resolution through to be voted on. And if you shy away from anything less than a full permanent ceasefire, you do not deserve to sit up there and represent the people of Oxnard. For 94 days, you have been silent. You've had the opportunity and the ability to use your power, but I haven't seen any of you out here at protests, at actions, at study groups, at vigils for the 24,000 Palestinians that have been murdered over the last 4 months. I haven't seen a single one of you out there. So use your positions of power and call for the bare minimum, which is a ceasefire, a permanent and lasting ceasefire. So while residents here in Oxnard struggle to afford housing, our teachers are buying supplies out of their own pockets, students don't have the resources they need. There were 2,200 homeless residents, adults and children in Oxnard in 2022. Rent is rising, the cost of food is increasing, people old and young can't afford health care, and Oxnard PD dares to ask for more money to buy drones and flashbangs, and you gave it to them. But you can't be bothered to spend a moment on this over the last 94 days. So we're here asking for the bare minimum. Why has it taken you so long to even consider putting this on the agenda? It's not even on the agenda. This is abhorrent and insulting to the residents of Oxnard, to the residents of Ventura County, and we want to know how much longer you're going to be complicit in the genocide of Palestinians. And we know that you're sick of us being here, but we're not going to leave, and we will be back and time again until Palestine is free.
Valeria.
Hello, y'all. My name is Valeria Rosendis, and I've lived in Oxnard for 24 years. So thank you for listening to us and looking at us and seeing us. I know that the grief we carry is really heavy, and yeah, so thank you, because I understand that that's not easy. And so if any of you are Jewish or any of your loved ones are, I just want to say that I am also grieving for you, and I'm sorry that there was safety that was promised to you in a state that forcefully stole from someone else, that took the lives of others. I don't understand why they promised you safety in a place that they stole from other people, and they're kicking other people out. And I'm really sorry that they told you that was safety, because it's not. As you're witnessing, it's not safe for you, it's not safe for Palestinians. That being said, please bring this forward to the agenda, at least, so we can talk about it some more. You can think about it more if that's what you need. And I'm just gonna also just share the words of my global neighbors, people in the Republic of South Africa. They delivered this to the International Court of Justice. And as we consider this, yeah, please consider that this is not just a one moment in history. There's been a long time of this happening. So my siblings in the Republic of South Africa said, it is important to place the acts of genocide in the broader context of Israel's conduct towards Palestinians during its 75-year-long apartheid. Its 56-year-long belligerent occupation of Palestinian territory and its 16-year-long blockade of Gaza, including the serious and ongoing violations of international law associated therewith, including grave breaches of the Fourth Geneva Convention and other war crimes and crimes against humanity. Please bring this forward to the agenda. Thank you. And I really appreciate your eye contact.
Yeah. Claudia?
Hello, my name is Claudia Gonzalez. I'm a Ventura County resident. I work for a local nonprofit that serves the entire county, and although my views and my opinions are my own, they don't represent the nonprofit. I stand by their values, which are: we value people, we value a healthy community, we value people helping people, and that's why I'm here. And that's why this room is full of people, because we value people and we value life. I stand by these values, and I'm here to strongly urge this committee to formally agendize and pass the proposed resolution for the immediate ceasefire of Palestine.
Thank you. And okay, Nadel, before you speak, I'm going to call up Sax, A-S-X, and then also a Scarlett White, Paloma, and Charles Friedman, and Dylan Hubert. Okay, go ahead, Nadel.
Good evening. My name is Nadal Barakat. I'm a Palestinian American. I came to this country back in 1969 after the 67 war. So we became refugees. We came here to Southern California in Ventura County. I had the pleasure of working with the late Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers. They were the core at that time standing up for human rights. And we all supported them, and we have achieved a lot by standing with the United Farm Workers. The United Farm Workers are doing the same thing today, standing on the right side of justice, standing for human rights with the Palestinian people. I'm not going to give you a long speech. I'm going to give you facts. Fact, Human Rights Watch. Everybody knows of it. Amnesty International, Jimmy Carter, all labeled Israel as an apartheid state, not to mention Desmond Tutu, late Nelson Mandela. This is a cancer. This is a cancer on humanity. We cannot support a country that today, 2024, that we have an apartheid system. Palestine is the only occupied country as of today. All what we ask for, the Palestinians, is dignity, rights, and basically what Americans fought for. Give me liberty or give me death. Have you heard that statement before? Do you believe in it? The Gazans do. They are saying today, give me liberty or give me death. I ask you to stand on the right side of justice. As somebody said, when you go tonight and put your head on the pillow, ask yourself, did I do the right thing? Thank you, and God bless you.
Okay, Mr. Sachs.
I just literally have a couple words to say. I don't think I've heard them yet here. The first one is jihad. The second one is Hamas. Third one is massacre.
Okay, please.
At the beginning of the meeting, I read
That's right.
decorum advisory, and people have been stretching that with finger snapping and other forms of subtle applause. If we can't let the speakers speak without interruption, then we're going to have to take the measures that I spoke about. So please,
So please, give the.
let the speakers
Yeah.
have their say. Thank you.
The opportunity to
Please-
speak like everybody else. Go ahead.
Please reset the time.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. First word I wanted to say again was jihad. The second one was Hamas. The third one was massacre. And the last one was self-defense. Thank you.
Thank you. Scarlett White.
Greetings. My name is Scarlett White, and I am a Port Hueneme resident. I am in 7th grade, and I may not be Palestinian. I am not Arab, but I am human. And as a human with basic human empathy, I demand a ceasefire to the genocide of the Palestinian people. Our tax dollars fund the slaughter of Palestinians and contribute to the destruction of Palestinian land. It has only been 3 months since October 7th, and yet more than 30,000 Palestinians have been martyred. That is only the bodies that have been confirmed. I would like to add that about half of the people in Gaza are children. There are Palestinian men, women, and children under the rubble.
Thank you.
2.2 million people in Gaza are displaced and living in tents hungry, with no water. They are traumatized, and though they are not allowed to process it, they do not even have the time to process all of the horrible things happening to them. All of the bombings that killed their families, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, uncles, aunties, cousins, grandmothers, and grandfathers. All of the rape, death, and loss of their homes is not able to be processed. There will come a time when the genocide will be over, and you will tell your children and your grandchildren, anyone that will listen, that you were there for the Palestinians. You will tell people that you were in support of the ceasefire, that you spoke up and fought against the genocide of these human beings. And I say human beings because they have been dehumanized so much throughout the media. But for some of you, that will simply and depressingly not be true. There is a saying that is popular. It is a Bible scripture. Matthew 7:12. Do unto others as you would wish for them to do unto you. There is no excuse not to vote for a ceasefire and to blatantly ignore a genocide that is happening in front of your faces. How do you want to be remembered in history?
Thank you. Charles? Okay.
Yes, my name is Charles Friedman. I'm a Ventura County resident,
And I feel very blessed that we live in America when we can voice our opinions. And I would like to also say that we have different venues for different opinions and for achieving results. I think the purpose of the Oxnard City Council is to run the city of Oxnard, not to vote on political items. If you want political change, please speak to your politicians and demonstrate to them. That's where it is really appropriate. You have the freedom to do it here. I agree with that. I think that most of us would agree that we would like to see peace in the entire world, okay? I think that's the end goal of most religions. I think that we have to keep something in mind here. If you want an immediate ceasefire, Hamas can release all their hostages and give up. There would be peace instantly, okay? You have to also keep in mind that Hamas officials have said, we will...
Ladies and gentlemen, please,
All right,
please,
listen.
please, that's not fair. Everybody needs to have their turn. Please, thank you. Go ahead.
Reset the clock.
Reset the clock, please.
Thank you. We need to keep in mind that Hamas officials who represent the people of Palestine, they voted for them. Hamas is considered a terrorist organization by many nations. Okay, cut it out.
No, we're going to have to, look, Mr. City Attorney, please share the information again, otherwise we're going to have to.
So if order cannot be restored to the meeting room, then we will have to clear the room, and then the body can consider whether to accept speakers one at a time or just take the matter with the room empty except for credentialed media.
Please, let's give each speaker, everybody's had their turn. Go ahead.
Thank you. I want us to keep in mind the words of Hamas itself. It said, we will do October 7 again and again and again. It's very simple. Which side do you want to be on? Thank you.
Thank you. Paloma?
Good evening. My name is Paloma Concordia. I'm a constituent of District 2 and appointed to the City of Oxnard's Arts and Culture Commission. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on stolen land and settlers on Chumash territory. For nearly 100 days, I've seen things I only would imagine to find in war and horror movies happening in real time in Gaza and the West Bank. However, I learned about the injustice and dehumanization of Palestinians over 15 years ago, when an arts organization I worked for at the time created a project that highlighted water rights issues in communities around the world, one of them being in Gaza due to the illegal occupation of Israel. The last few months have shown me what it must have been like for the Aztecs, or where my family is from, the Philippines, when the Spanish colonized our people and lands. Here in the US, it was and continues to be the genocide and displacement of Native Americans. The award-winning Palestinian poet Mossab Abu Toha was kidnapped, tortured, and then later released by the Israeli military to further intimidate the community. Over 100 journalists have been targeted and killed along with their families. What does that tell us about the grave situation our relations in Palestine are facing when the military find a poet's words to be threatening? It has always been the artists that have taught me about social justice issues and inspired me to learn about the history that was left out of our classrooms. It is heartbreaking and maddening to know that Palestine's museums, universities, cultural and arts institutions have been targeted in Israel's unhinged aggressions, along with hospital, churches of all faiths, refugee centers, schools, and civilian homes. There have been too many people, mostly children, that have been killed and dehumanized in these terrifying months and 75 years before, using our tax dollars, while our own citizens are buried in health and school debt and struggle to make ends meet. It is clear there's always money for war. The organization U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights created an interactive map showing how much of the annual $3.8 billion in military fundings Israel receives from the U.S. does each city pay through federal tax dollars. When I looked up Oxnard, it showed over 1.8 million funds, weapons to Israel instead of being invested back into our schools, our arts and culture institutions, healthcare, housing, social services, etc. I brought this information to my fellow commissioners in December to be put on the agenda for our next meeting as a call for solidarity with not just Palestine, but all of humanity. The majority of Americans and people across the world are against this aggression. Why are our elected officials so invested in war?
Thank you. Thank you. Huber, I'm going to call the other five. Mr. Cantor, Buck, Taylor Buck, and then also Narsuhan, and then Brianna Reese, and then followed by Rabbi Muchniae. Go ahead. So then, Cantor, get in line. Go ahead then.
Yeah, so my name is Dylan Hubert, and I'm a Ventura County resident, and I'm here to strongly urge you and the committee to formally agendize and pass the proposed resolution for the ceasefire in Palestine at the next Oxnard City Council meeting on January 16th. I really think it's important that we have to be here to beg to get this on the agenda. I consider this whole genocide to be incomprehensible. And I'm a Jewish resident, and this does not, what the state of Israel is doing in the name of Judaism is not making Jews safe here or anywhere. Because with the words that our president uses, calling himself a Zionist, that makes every Jew very unsafe, because those words are then being put onto us. And I've seen that here in the county, and I've ran into that. And so this is a very big issue for constituents here. And honestly, I feel that it's been happening for 100 days. And I mean, there was time to learn. I've taken a lot of time to learn, on October 7th and those days after. I'm a history minor in school. I like to learn history, and there's a lot of history out there, and it's hard to know it all. It's impossible. But we've had the time, right? And we've seen it over and over, and it keeps happening. And I mean, it's wild to me that we have to go in this country and donate to GoFundMes to pay for people's medical care. When, I mean, I just contributed to an employee at the Ventura County Fairgrounds who went to the hospital, can't pay his rent. We've got to step up and support that, because this country prioritizes bombing civilians in other countries over our own constituents here, which is abhorrent, and it's inexcusable, honestly. And so what I'm here to say is yeah, free Palestine, and from the river to the sea, let's make it happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cantor? Go ahead.
Hello, City Council members. My name is Janae Couture. I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'm a Ventura County resident, and I'm here to strongly urge that this committee formally agendize and to pass the proposed resolution for the ceasefire in Palestine at the next Oxnard City Council meeting on January 16th. I have not come here today to thank you. I have not come here to beg or to plead with you. I have come here today strong and unwavering with local, national, and international support. I speak on behalf of the students, the youth, the next generation of voters. I've come here to remind you of who your constituents are and what we demand. Your constituents are part of the 61% of US voters that demand a ceasefire. Your constituents are members leading the anti-war, anti-genocide, anti-imperialist, and anti-capitalist struggle. Your constituents are the working class. Your constituents are who put you in power. And today, your constituents come with clear and firm demands. We demand an immediate ceasefire. We demand a total lift on the siege on Gaza. We demand an immediate release of Palestinian political prisoners. We demand that the Oxnard Police Department immediately end their deadly exchange program training with the IOF the Israeli occupational forces. And we demand that the United States never send another dime to the settler colonial entity of Israel, and that they use our tax money on jobs, education, healthcare, and food for the working class. And as you have heard so far, we, the voters, will not accept anything less. These are our bare minimum demands. We will not accept a blind eye to bombings. We will not accept a blind eye to starvation. We will not accept genocide, and we are not going anywhere. I want to leave you with one final proposition that I suggest you take into deep, deep consideration. Vote to agendize and adopt the ceasefire resolution like your fellow members in Oakland, or we will remember your actions come election time.
Yeah, Mr. Buck.
All right, howdy. My name is Taylor. I'm a Ventura County resident, and I strongly urge this committee to formally agendize and pass the proposed resolution for the ceasefire in Palestine at the next Oxnard City Council meeting on January 16th. I'm here to support the people behind me, who many have direct ties and family living in Palestine. We're calling for a ceasefire, and if you can't agree with doing what we can to end the bloodshed, then what are you advocating for? I understand this conflict may seem very confusing, and I'm not mocking anyone. The confusion is intentional. There's a whole propaganda machine in motion by Israel and funded and backed by the most powerful country in the history of the world. That's good old USA. But again, I'll repeat with what my colleagues have said. 50% of Gaza is under the age of 18. How many more kids need to be bombed to smithereens before Oxnard City Council can take a stand and call for a ceasefire? I know that my friends and comrades here have been short with y'all, but we're fucking angry, right? So I call again on Oxnard City Council to join their colleagues in Long Beach, Atlanta, Richmond, Oakland, Minneapolis, and Detroit, who have all called for a ceasefire. Thank you.
Okay. Brianna Reese. Brianna? Okay. No? Mr. Reese? Okay. Then the next one is ANADHI. I'm sorry I better not mispronounce your name.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Anandi Narasimhan. I'm a child and adult psychiatrist. I am also an asylum evaluator for Physicians for Human Rights. I have evaluated children that have been trafficked, women that have been married into the Taliban, and victims of female genital mutilation. So I understand intimately the challenges of displaced individuals, and I'm also, my area of expertise is in child trauma. I also want to say that I am a widow. I was married to a beautiful Jewish man who lived on a kibbutz in Israel. So I personally understand the pain of losing a loved one. I understand the heartache of watching, my husband died right after our son was born. I understand the heartache of watching a child grow up without a parent. And I also understand the beauty of healing through loving one another, not despite our differences, but because of our differences. The children everywhere in this world need a voice. It is the fundamental human responsibility to protect children, whether it's a child in Israel or Palestine, Sudan, or the Congo. So I'm here today because I want to be a voice for these children. Today, I read that every day, at least 10 children in Gaza are losing one or both limbs. That requires a lifetime of medical care and pain management. My husband died of cancer, and I can't imagine if we didn't have access to pain medications. My medical colleagues from Doctors Without Borders are reporting that they're having to perform brain surgeries and amputations without anesthesia. I'm not a geopolitical expert. I am not a military strategist, but I do know children. I do know human suffering, and killing people and killing a child every 8 minutes is not a pathway towards justice or peace.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rabbi, before I call Rabbi up, next 5 people: Nandina, Sayyed, followed by Faith, then followed by Leah, Dehmehseie, and followed by Michael Castaneda and Angel, Mane. Rabbi.
Good evening, esteemed committee, Oxnard City Council members. My name is Rabbi Dov Muchnik. I am the local rabbi and the director of the Chabad of Oxnard Jewish Center. I also serve as a volunteer police chaplain with the cities of Oxnard and Port Hueneme. I have lived and worked in this wonderful community for over 20 years with my wife and 10 children, thank God. Historical fact: the Jewish nation was gifted the land of Israel by Almighty God in the Bible to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants as an everlasting inheritance. The Jewish nation lives by Torah law, which teaches that one must practice self-defense. If someone, God forbid, is attempting to kill you, you must do the moral thing and neutralize them first. Protecting its citizens is probably the most important concept of any government, including the United States of America. As to the agenda item tonight, let me be clear: no resolution regarding the Israel-Hamas war should be passed by our city council. As a community, we really understand far too little about a very complex conflict in the Middle East to make a meaningful contribution. The draft resolution is naive at best. For example, it describes a, quote, permanent ceasefire. Ceasefires are rarely permanent, and those involving Hamas have never been so. Also, the draft ignores Hamas's commitment to destroy Israel. In fact, in their charter, they commit to murder every Jew around the world, God forbid. If, as Hamas has promised, it continues to pursue this goal, Israel will need to continue to respond, and sadly, Palestinians will continue to die, and that's Hamas's fault.
Come on.
Listen, Rabbi, I'm sorry.
Let me know when I could continue.
Let's go ahead and
everybody who signs up to speak here has a right to speak without being disrupted.
That's right.
You can disagree all you want. Please do not disrupt.
It's not fair.
Just respect the speaker. This is our process here. If you can't do that, I'll have the room cleared. Just respect every speaker, whether you agree or disagree.
And respect these flyers too.
No, look, you know, no, listen, sir. You just heard the rules.
I just heard the rules.
The rules are.
Okay, I'm talking about the
If
speaking
not, we're
here.
going to have to clear this.
Okay.
We're going to have to clear the stadium if you continue.
Reset.
Sir,
Listen.
Okay.
Sir, the committee and staff have a duty to ensure that this meeting's conducted
That's
in
right.
an orderly manner. Now, you have been warned. It's not your turn to speak. One more outburst, and you will be escorted from the chambers. Thank you.
So, Rabbi, you have 3 minutes again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Also, the draft ignores Hamas's commitment to destroy Israel, God forbid. As mentioned, it's clearly in their charter that they would murder every Jew if they could, anywhere in the world, including here in this city. If, as Hamas has promised, it continues to pursue this goal, Israel will continue to defend itself, respond, and sadly, Palestinians will continue to die. And as mentioned, that is on Hamas's hands. More importantly, any substantive substantive resolution on this clearly emotional topic will be divisive. This at a time when the City Council should focus on local issues and restoring harmony and peace in our area. We hope the Council will follow in the footsteps of Jesse Arugian, the mayor of Berkeley, California, who recently, when his council was considering this matter, said, quote, "These resolutions will not end the violence abroad, but they will fan the flames of hatred here at home." Our City Council should focus on the real and pressing issues that directly impact our daily lives here in our beloved city of Oxnard. Our City Council meetings should be a platform for addressing local civic issues, for making decisions that improve the quality of life for all the Oxnard residents. I call on the Finance and Governance Committee to reject this resolution and redirect our attention back to the core functions of our city government. Let's work together to ensure that Oxnard continues to thrive as a city, and that not only it stands against hate, but also proactively works towards the betterment of its residents in tangible, everyday ways. I'd like to quote Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Secretary of our country's statement in a recent press conference. Quote, "Israel has been very clear that it would welcome returning to a pause and the further release of hostages. The problem was and has been and remains Hamas. They reneged on commitments they made during the first pause for hostage releases. We believe that, as we said from the outset," that's the United States government, "Israel has not only a right but an obligation to defend itself and to try to make sure October 7 never happens again. Any other country in the world faced with what Israel suffered on October 7th would do the same. What is striking to me," says the Secretary of State, "that even as we again we hear many countries urging the end to this conflict, I hear virtually no one demanding of Hamas that it stop hiding behind civilians, that it lay down its arms and surrender. This conflict is over tomorrow if Hamas does that." In conclusion, I pray for a time of world peace, when, as the prophet Isaiah says, "Nation shall not lift the sword against another nation, nor shall they teach war anymore. With the speedy arrival of Mashiach, the Jewish Messiah, and the true and complete redemption made happen speedily in our days. God bless Israel. God bless America." Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker is Nandine, N-A-D-I-N, Nandine.
I'm a resident and student in Ventura County. Oxnard County must add Resolution 786 to the next agenda immediately and pass it in favor of a ceasefire. Palestinians have been dehumanized in the Western and Israeli media and by American politicians. Western politicians choose to ignore the reality of this genocide and occupation. I will not ignore this genocide and occupation Palestinians are facing. I am the daughter and granddaughter of Palestinian refugees who were forcibly removed from their home, land, and possessions in 1967. 75 years ago, Israel claimed statehood in historic Palestine. Since, the indigenous Palestinians have been occupied in their own land by Israeli colonizers, the longest occupation in modern history. Palestinians have been fighting Western colonialism for over 100 years. Today is the 96th day of Israel's carpet bombing on the civilians of Palestine's Gaza and aid workers. As of today, at least 22,700 Palestinians have been killed in the Gaza Strip, at least 11,422 children, and 5,822 women. But Palestinians are not numbers. You must realize they are people too. What is happening in Gaza is not a war. It is ethnic cleansing, genocide, deliberate and systematic killing. It's wrongly called a war, when in actuality it is human annihilation in a small enclaved area of 2 million Palestinians. Israel deploys deadly carpet bombing and restricts aid from entering. Israel is unlawfully using white phosphorus in their bombardment on the Gaza Strip. When the white phosphorus comes into contact with the skin, it creates intense and persistent burns, sometimes to the bone. Infection is common, and the body's absorption of the chemical can cause serious damage to the internal organs as well as death. As mentioned earlier, they're performing surgery without anesthesia. There is no medical aid to help them. Children constituting almost half of the population in Gaza, a region recently described by the UN as the most dangerous place in the world to be a child, are bearing the brunt of this conflict alongside women, accounting for nearly 70% of the casualties since October 7. Among the growing death toll are children, doctors, academics, journalists, artists, and poets. According to the Euromed Human Rights Monitor, 70% of Gaza Strip's infrastructure infrastructure is destroyed. Israel has dropped more than 65,000 tons of bombs on Gaza since October 7. 71% of Gaza's population is experiencing severe levels of hunger, and 98% of Gaza's population report inadequate food consumption. Israel is bombing civilian infrastructure, hospitals, schools, universities, churches, masjids, and residences. Gaza's Christian community is dwindling and fears extinction. According to the UN, that's more deaths than in any single conflict in the organization's 78-year history. The genocide in Gaza is the deadliest conflict for journalists and aid workers in over 30 years. 58 miles away from Gaza in the occupied West Bank, over 4,000 Palestinians have been arrested by Israeli occupation forces since October 7. Even Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus, peace be upon him, is affected. They canceled Christmas celebrations. The birthplace of Jesus canceled Christmas celebrations.
Thank you. Sergeant in Arms, please clear the aisle. Please clear the aisle. This has become detrimental to the rest of the folks. In case of a fire, clear the aisle, please. Thank you. Our next speaker is Faith.
Hello. I wrote something about the history of Palestine from 1948 till now, and I don't think I have to read it because everybody here looks like they're very familiar with the history of Palestine. Unfortunately, the rabbi forgot to mention Ishmael, the other son of Abraham. He had two sons. Therefore, the Jews and the Arabs are brothers and sisters. They share the same father. So I am not going to be reading my history that I wrote. Just wrote points, and I'm going to sound like somebody who has ADD, so it's probably not going to make sense. But the first time I learned of the horrific life struggle that the Palestinian people have endured since the inception of the State of Israel was when I was 14 years old, and I was not eating lunch in high school, and I would go to the library because I was fasting the month of Ramadan, and Life magazine would have pictures of Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, swollen bodies from the summer. All the bodies were swollen. They left in the early 80s because of being a smaller genocide on the Palestinians at that time. And Ariel Sharon, the president of Israel at the time, caused that slaughter of them in that refugee camp in Lebanon. So they had to leave their homeland, Palestine, as refugees to Lebanon, and they were massacred in Lebanon in a refugee camp. And I was also going to remind everybody that the Palestinians are an unarmed people. They do not have weapons. They have nothing. The Palestinian Authority is the authority in the West Bank, and they actually work for the State of Israel. They manage Israel to keep the Palestinians from raising a voice. They can't even protest. And on two separate platforms, I have heard Benjamin Netanyahu say that Hamas is an asset to Israel, and the PA is a liability, because this way the Palestinians will always be divided and there will never be an independent Palestinian state side by side with Israel. And Israel acts with impunity, so they can do whatever they want and they never get blamed or have to face consequences, like how they've killed leaders, and they killed 2 leaders of Hamas, and they killed 3 these past few days.
Thank you. Leah is the next speaker. No, let's keep going. Yeah. Not unless you want. Go ahead, Leah.
My name is Leah. I live in Ventura County. I work in Ventura County. I'm an Iranian Muslim organizer for the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and I am here to demand that this subcommittee immediately, without hesitation, put this motion on the next City Council agenda. A few weeks ago, We showed up to draw the comparisons between the funding of local police department and how our struggles against police violence at home and abroad is inextricably linked. An absolutely ridiculous idea was put forward by some members of the city council, Basua, I'm looking at you, that the struggles for Palestinian liberation are not connected and they have no relevancy in the halls of Oxnard City Council. I would like to remind everybody listening today that that type of rhetoric, that our struggles are disconnected, this rhetoric is limiting, it is demeaning, it is insulting, and it is without serious analysis. So let me state some facts for you. In Oxnard, California, our 1,800,000 is sent to Israeli weapons of genocide. 219 households could be funded in Oxnard with that federal money. It is our duty as thinking people of conscience to understand that we do not live in a world where evil or good simply exist in a vacuum. There are capitalist, war-hungry, imperialist forces from the US that demand the formation of proxy terror states such as Israel. The US ruling class demands that Israel sow terror in the Levantine region and create a permanent crisis for the people of Palestine, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Iran, Algeria, Yemen, the list goes on. These terrors extend beyond the Middle East as the Israeli legitimate forces train fascism forces in Colombia, Guatemala, and these are the same capitalist forces that seek to dominate and oppress our communities at home. Zionism is treating the Bible as a real estate deed. It is treating the Arabs with ethnic superiority. Israel does not make anybody safe. It is an isolationist ethno-state that was founded on the principles of stealing homes and destroying the livelihood of indigenous Palestinians. The people say no more. No more is normalization with Israel, no more funding to Israel, no more siege on Gaza. We will not be misled, deceived, nor manipulated by the influence of Zionism. We, as young people, we understand that there is no confusion between capitalism and war. Capitalism necessitates war, necessitates racism, necessitates exploitation of the working people. This body of local government here also has Julia Brownlee and Salud Carbonahal to pressure. They refuse to use the word Palestine in any of their statements, and it is ethnic erasure.
Michael Castaneda. Well, look, you know, if you guys want to continue staying in here, just otherwise we're going to have to clear the whole item, the whole building here. Okay, before you continue, I'm going to have to call Naomi Hernandez, Morris Huberman, let me see, Martin, and then also ROP, and then AMLLY. The next speakers. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, I'm a resident of Oxnard, born and raised. My family has roots here dating back to the late 1800s. So the politics of this city and its elected leaders is something that is deeply important to me. The genocide that is being inflicted upon the Palestinian people by Israel, and which is being supported and funded by the US government, requires urgent attention by all elected leaders. Israel has killed upwards of 30,000 innocent men, women, and children who were just like us, had dreams and aspirations just like ours, who had hope for a better life just like we do. All of those hopes and dreams have been stripped from them by the Israeli occupation forces. Every day we see images and videos of Palestinian children without limbs, parents crying out for their dead children, children crying out for their dead parents, and the Zionists who callously and inhumanely celebrate these atrocities. If you are unaffected by these images, then you have lost your humanity. If the Oxnard City Council does not support adding this item to the next agenda, and if they do not vote to support the resolution, there will be political consequences. We are giving you this opportunity to hear us in this way because you work for us, and if you do not listen to our demands for a permanent ceasefire, we will make you hear in other ways. Life in Palestine has been disrupted by a violent occupation for decades and now in the form of a genocide. What makes you think that you deserve to continue with business as usual? Ceasefire now, end the occupation, free Palestine.
Okay, Naomi Hernandez? Hernandez?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, esteemed members of the Oxnard Finance and Governments Committee and fellow residents. I come to this meeting as a daughter of Mexican immigrants and a daughter of Oxnard, and a proud member of the Jewish community. My family put roots in Oxnard over 50 years ago in the 70s, and I was born and raised here. I was in Israel on October 7th, when Hamas terrorists invaded, murdered, and took hostage Israeli towns and Israeli civilians. My friends were murdered at the Nova Music Festival. My friends had their families taken hostage in Be'eri and other Israeli cities of the south. I lived under the daily rocket fire from Hamas. I had a Hamas rocket explode in the street in front of my apartment in Tel Aviv while I took shelter with my neighbors. I am here because Israel protects the residents, and I was able to fly here even while the airport was under rocket attack from Hamas. I came back to Oxnard to find a safe place. Here, my hometown, where I knew I would find a safe haven. We have seen a disturbing rise in acts of hatred and intolerance. The Jewish community has experienced a 377% increase in anti-Semitic incidents, according to recent FBI reports. This is not just a number. It represents a growing sense of fear and vulnerability among our people. And I would hate to see further divisions instigated by adding a resolution that has nothing to do with Oxnard. The Oxnard where I reassure my friends in Israel who ask me, civilians in cities throughout Israel who are still under Hamas rocket fire, who ask if I feel safe here, who I reassure that I feel safe and would like to continue feeling that safety I have felt. As an Oxnard resident and as a Mexican Jew, I ask the committee today to think of Oxnard here, and to not add the resolution to a future agenda, to keep all residents of Oxnard feeling safe and to prevent the incitement of future community divisions. The role of the City Council is not to engage in global politics. Adding it to the agenda will not change Hamas, and it will not create a ceasefire. I ask you ensure the safety and dignity and respect of all Oxnard residents. We must rise above the divisions that global conflicts can create in our local community and focus on what unites us, our shared humanity and our common values. Thank you.
Okay, Morris Huberman, excuse me.
That's okay.
Okay, my apologies.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm going to make this very, very short. I'm going to give you an analogy. You have a body, and your body was attacked by cancer. You go to the doctor, and he says, we're going to have to remove the cancer. You say, go ahead. Halfway through, you say, no, stop. I don't want you to remove the cancer. I'm going to live with what I have. What happens? You end up passing. All I can ask you is to vote for no and keep this conflict that we don't want, that nobody wants, going until we get rid of the cancer in our body. Thank you.
Thank you. Flem? Martin? Okay, then R-O-O-P?
It's Roop. It's not that hard. It's kind of like Ryan or Chris.
I'm sorry.
It's Roop.
Okay.
My name is Roop. I'm a Ventura County resident, and I'm here to implore the council to agendize and pass the proposed resolution for the ceasefire of Palestine in the next city council meeting. I want to remind you of one thing as you're whispering amongst yourselves. You guys are public servants, and your job is to serve the people, which means to listen while we're talking. This room is overflowing with people. I'm not sure how many other subcommittee meetings you've seen with this type of turnout. I want to take this moment to ask you to look around. Mayor, look around and see the amount of people who have come out today because this is important to them. The least you could do is sit here and listen and give me eye contact while I'm speaking. I have a full-time job, I'm a full-time law student, and I deserve your respect. This is your community, and we are here to urge you to stand on the right side of history. Your job is to stand for these people, all of them. I heard someone say that this is a city council meeting, that we don't care about foreign affairs, and I want to say that other cities have already taken this step. We call on Oxnard City Council to join their colleagues in Long Beach, Atlanta, Richmond, Oakland, Minneapolis, and Detroit, who have all called for a ceasefire. The timing could not be more urgent. As you guys go to sleep every night, children are being killed. I've heard a lot of talk about world peace and babies, but it doesn't seem like those values go both ways. I've never seen world peace achieved through carpet bombings and burying babies under rubble. Those are the facts. I'm not here to educate you on the history. You look like a very smart man, as do all of you. You can look that up yourselves. These people have come out here today to talk to you and to explain why you should agendize and pass this resolution. There's only one side here today whose intent is to take pictures of us, record as if this meeting isn't already recorded, to post them on the internet to call for us to be doxxed, to lose our jobs, and for endless harassment. That's not us. Mayor, I ask you to side with us today. Thank you.
Okay, Amalia? What's your name? Before we continue, the young lady that was standing, do we have a card for you? You're going to be next. You okay? But what's your name? Angel Maria. Well, we'll call you next. Go ahead.
First, thank you for your hard work for the people of Oxnard, and thank you to the peace officers for protecting the people of Oxnard. We're grateful to all of you. I'd like to hope the council on HR 76 vote no to not take this in front of the city council. The council's work is to help and care for the people of Oxnard. To add my general comment, I know I'm not changing any minds, it's just to comment. On 786, it's noticeable, instead of kindness and gratitude, I see people wearing masks to hide, not condemning Hamas, the demonic slaughter, and we just witnessed one before coming up to speak, intentionally coughing at the woman in front's face. It's strange. October 7th was a slaughter of many people, Jewish, Muslim, Thai, Tanzanians, and more. That should be the focus. The Hamas slaughter of their own people and others on October 7th should be our focus. The 786 language uses terms such as occupied Palestine, when all people live freely in Israel, and Israel made all Jewish and others leave Gaza in 2005. Israel did that. A two-state was made. Gaza is free of all Jewish and mostly Christians. There's some Christians still there. 8,000 to 10,000 Jewish were forced to leave Gaza. They left their home, work, farm, warehouses. There's no occupation in Israel. We can remember the sad event of Gush Katif. They tried peace and it didn't work. My general comments, I invite those supporting 786, take a tour of Israel and Gaza. You'll be shocked. I've been there 5 times. Your media told you Israel keeps cultures separate. All religions are free in Israel. Muslims, Jewish, Christians, and others move to Israel to be free, to vote free, to serve in the government and IDF. In Israel, you're free to be gay. You're free as a woman to vote, and Muslim women and girls can wear what they wish on the beach, marry who they wish, and dress how they wish in Israel. While Egypt keeps a wall blocking Gazans at all times, except recently charging $7,000 for Gazans to enter, and Jordan keeps a wall at the West Bank border, keeping out the West Bank, Israel allows a flow of Gazans to enter for work. Each day, about 30% of Gazans make income this way. The video we all saw of the young festival girl with a broken, swollen body in a truck in Gaza being spit on, that truck passed many hospitals to bring her dead body under a hospital into a tunnel filled with weapons, rockets, and under a school. I'm just gonna skip ahead. We stand with Gaza and Israel in peace and against Hamas. Again, I hope you vote no on 786 to send a message that you're going to stay neutral on Middle East politics. And thank you, all 3 of you, and the police officers here for your service to this county, and especially the police officers.
Okay. Hey, Hey, wait a minute, hold it. Look, if this continues, look, this is not fair. Absolutely not fair. Angie Marie. Angie Marie. Look. Look at, wait a minute, Stu, we're just.
Please cease your outburst. It's not your turn to speak. I don't see that you've put it. I don't see that you've put a speaker card in. You will have your opportunity to speak. Okay, so please,
Look,
this is not a dialogue.
We're gonna clear the room.
Okay.
You are disrupting the meeting. If you continue to disrupt the meeting, the sergeant at arms will be asked to escort you out. Okay. You have been warned. Sir, you have been warned. You will not get another warning.
One more warning and we're gonna clear the room.
Sir, so you have continued to actually disrupt the meeting by making loud outbursts.
Please have this person clear. Sergeant at Arms, please remove this person. Remove this person now.
Mr. Mayor, perhaps we should call a brief recess?
Yeah, let's go to a recess, a brief recess. We'll be back in 10 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start over again. Well, Mr. City Attorney, can you go ahead and share the information that, please be seated and clear the aisles, please.
Sure, if people could take their seats.
Take your seats.
And a reminder that we need to keep the aisles clear for a matter of safety. And as I stated at the start of this meeting, state law does provide that if willful interruptions by members of the audience render the orderly conduct of a meeting unfeasible, an order cannot be restored by removing individuals who are willfully interrupting the meeting. This committee can order that the meeting room be cleared and continue with the business of the meeting. So please let the speakers speak without any reaction on your part. You will have your opportunity or have had your opportunity to speak, and now other speakers need to get through their comments so that the committee can continue with this item. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're going to start off with Angela Marie Taylor, but come up, but I'm going to call the other 5 people. It's Sammy Ali, Crystal Lopez, Sean Roseman, Shep Roseman, and Joseph B. Go ahead, Ms. Taylor.
Good evening, council members and everyone else. My name is Angel Marie, as we all heard, a Ventura County resident, Ventura County college student. Had to take a recess, but I think in a lot of ways what happened earlier in this room today reflects what's happening around the world. You have the obvious majority and the minority. You all know what I'm here to say, but I'll restate it for the record. I am here to strongly urge this committee to formally agendize and pass the proposed resolution for a ceasefire in Palestine at the next Oxnard City Council meeting, January 16th. In just the past 3 months, over 23,000 have been murdered, including Palestinian press, medical professionals, UN staff, and of course, innocent Palestinian civilians. 1.9 million displaced by the settler colonial state of Israel. You see, we, the community, have attended tonight to remind you of these horrific numbers, not to share feelings, but to draw attention to fact, knowing that by the time we finish this meeting, more innocent Palestinians would have been murdered because of the silence and complacency of our legislation. But it does not have to be that way. It starts here. It starts with the ceasefire resolution, the bare minimum that we can do for the Palestinian people. Remember that number I just mentioned a second ago? 23,000 people murdered? This is not just innocent civilians slaughtered under relentless bombings, but also from starvation, as Palestinians are dying of hunger, as the Israeli forces are not allowing humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, but also from illness, as Palestinians are dying from sickness and wounds, as the Israeli forces are not allowing humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, and not allowing the wounded to leave to seek medical attention they need either. Agendizing and passing this ceasefire resolution is the absolute bare minimum, no matter which way you choose to look at it, ethically, morally, or legally. It is wrong. This genocide is wrong. It's long since time this council joined that of Long Beach, Atlanta, Richmond, Oakland, Minneapolis, and Detroit. The people of Ventura County and Oxnard stand with Palestine. We demand that the Oxnard Police Department immediately end their training program with the occupation state of Israel. We demand an immediate ceasefire. We demand that our council adopt a position which represents their constituents. Us.
Didn't you speak already?
Sa anumang paraan na kinakailangan. Free Palestine.
Okay, the next person is. Ali's next.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the governor actually and the council for allowing this to happen, to have a voice. Thank you. Zaragoza, John Zaragoza. I went to Spain, Zaragoza. My uncle's a medical doctor there. Just wanted to bring that up. So everybody's into digital media. So one of my points today was everybody already kind of discussed everything in the humanity and all the genocide that's going on. In 1944, October 7th, 2023, October 7th. October 7th in 1944. Take your Google, search it. October 7th, 1944, prisoner revolt at Auschwitz. Jewish women and children and men revolted against the Nazis. 1944, October 7th. Resisting. For them, they knew they were going to be slaughtered and gassed. They resisted the occupation of the concentration camp. They resisted. What's happening in West Bank and what's happening in Gaza is no different what happened in 1944 on October 7th. Search it in your Google, read it. If you have any humanity, any compassion, any empathy, you must stand with justice. 193 nations voted, 2 only sustained, which is this country and Israel. To have real peace and a just peace, you got to have freedom, liberty, and justice for all, as that flag stands for. I stand with America, and I stand for this people of Oxnard to do the right thing. The Zionist apartheid Israel has spent billions on its propaganda machine. It costs money to demoralize and dehumanize people. It costs money to convince good, moralistic people to abandon their morals and support the evil terror apartheid state of Israel. That's what the Zionist game is. You have to spend money to change minds of masses by the media, spread disinformation, push ugly narrative to support the evil apartheid state. I'm going to tell you one thing. Israel is a military army, and the citizens of Israel are all military. They all work within their army. They're all guilty of this genocide. That's what South Africa is pushing for now. They are all war criminals and murderers because they all were serving the IDF. And then we have 20,000, our own Americans going over there to kill our own people. And same thing in Britain, in France. The imperialist countries can do what they want. But the global South and the rest of the world is starting to see things. And they see things that injustice is not right. Humanity needs to stand together for peace and prosperity for everyone, not just a few. I'm not going to go on and on, but mainstream media is censored by Israel. So they hide the atrocities, they hide everything. We can't see anything. We have to go to the main Google, YouTube, TikTok. We have people, 100 and some odd journalists died. They targeted journalists the other day in their car. They said, oh, he had a Hamas guy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Free Palestine.
Crystal Lopez. And we have banners here that are obstructing people's views, just for information. No banners. Or lower the banners anyways. I'm sorry, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Hello, my name is Crystal Lopez. I'm a resident of Oxnard. I was born and raised here. I'd like to speak on to ask City Council to agendize the House Resolution 786 so we may discuss this item further and hopefully pass it. A lot of our residents feel very strongly about this resolution. I personally do not support any sort of genocide or the atrocities on either side. I just want peace. I want us to have this actual discussion that's not being had at either the federal or state level, and that's why I feel that it is a city issue. A lot of the opposition has said that, no, it's not a city issue. It absolutely is a city issue. When our voices aren't being heard at the federal and states, where do we go and where do we start? I think that we have a wonderful opportunity to have that discussion here. At the same time, I'm a hardworking citizen. I pay my taxes. My taxes are currently being used to support this war that I don't support, that I think it doesn't make sense. I don't work hard so that my tax dollars go to kill innocent civilians on anywhere. So with that, I'd just like to comment on one other thing that somebody else before me had mentioned on the militarization of our police department. There absolutely is a lot of examples where we try to militarize our police. Another example that wasn't mentioned yet is how we're using the fentanyl crisis to just further fund our police. If this topic is a global issue that we shouldn't be talking about, then we shouldn't be talking about fentanyl either. That's a federal, the opioid crisis is a global issue, so why are we dealing it with here in the city, in our county? We're gonna try to solve it, right? So let's try to solve this issue as well. I personally think that any kind of military or funding to our police department is not gonna help a humanitarian issue where we need to address things like affordable housing or mental health programs that actually work. I think those types of funding will actually help in both of the issues that I just mentioned, the fentanyl crisis and this one. So if we're gonna talk about global issues, then let's talk about them, but not just be selective about what we talk about. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Sean Rosman.
Hi, my name is Sherry Rosenman.
No, excuse me.
It's okay.
Mhm.
Thank you for hearing me.
Mhm.
As a trained lawyer, I'd like to take a moment to point out some of the errors in the resolutions that are before this committee. In the HRes 786, it says in the first sentence that the ceasefire in Israel and occupied Palestine, excuse me, it's a fact. Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005. It has not been occupying Gaza since that time. So that first sentence of the resolution that's before you is in error. Secondly, if you go to the resolution that the city of Oxnard has drafted and proposed, it says about the fourth paragraph down, 17,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed, of whom over 10,000 are children. We don't know this. We don't know the numbers in Gaza because Hamas was the only agency that was doing the counting. And Hamas is in chaos. There is no official record.
The speaker could just pause for a moment. If order cannot be restored, people will be asked to step outside so that the speaker can finish.
Yeah.
So please stop disrupting the meeting. You are disrupting the meeting by making noise with your flyers.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. All of the international media have recognized that there's no known numbers, so these numbers are not accurate. And then if you go to the next paragraph, it talks about the root cause of the crisis needs to be addressed, the root cause of what's going on in Israel and in Gaza. It's what happened. What happened on October 7th is not about a peace process. It's not about justice for Palestinians. My understanding is that Hamas invaded because Saudi Arabia was trying to engage in a peace process with a peace agreement with Israel, and Hamas didn't like it because it's not good for peace, and Hamas doesn't want peace in the Middle East. Hamas is a terrorist organization. So the root causes that are referenced here would have to be fleshed out more, and I don't think they, okay.
Shep Roseman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I ask that you vote against bringing this resolution to the City Council, notwithstanding the terrible loss of life in this conflict. I wake up daily to updates from my family members about the number of rocket and other violence and terror attacks that they experience and continue to face daily. You are being gaslit. You heard, do you want to give them time to heckle me? Okay. You heard so much disinformation and anti-Semitism in this room tonight. The people who are advocating the position on behalf of the Palestinian people won't even talk to us directly because it, quote, normalizes us. So just bear that in mind. These are not people interested in a discussion. Israel is not murdering or committing genocide. Israel is undertaking a legal response of war against the atrocious terrorist acts committed by Hamas and other Palestinian groups and individuals on October 7th. Israel is responding with justice to cure the atrocity of injustice of continued terrorist attacks by Hamas, PIJ, Hezbollah in Israel. If you support a ceasefire, you are asking Israel to do something that you would not ask California to do or Oxnard itself. Would you tolerate a known terrorist group that maimed, murdered, kidnapped, and raped men, women, and children living next door to you? Hamas and the rest of the terrorist infrastructure must be fully rooted out with no lingering political influence, and the hostages must be returned now. Until that happens, not only should there be no request for a ceasefire, but we should encourage Israel to finish what it started for the safety of everyone in the region. Shame on you all.
Okay, wait a minute, hold it.
Mr. Mayor,
Start my time.
Mr. Mayor, I think we need to consider whether to clear the room.
I think so, too.
That's a matter for the committee to decide. I've read the rules on this. We have advised several times if a speaker can't be allowed to finish because of the audience interference, then you can clear the room and call speakers one by one as an option.
I am going to call to clear the room and then have speakers come as we speak, as we call them. So let's clear. Where's our let's clear the room. Thank you, and I'll call.
So the monitors.
We're back from recess, and we have an announcement. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Chair Zaragoza. After multiple warnings about decorum in the audience, the committee ordered the room cleared. Many members of the audience, as the room was being cleared, became very unruly, and to the point where we can't continue with the meeting with members of the public present. And pursuant to the provisions of the Brown Act, Government Code Section 54957.9, the committee may continue with the business and only the business that is on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Attorney. So the subject matter, the recommendation is that the Finance and Governance Committee consider whether to place a future City Council agenda a resolution requesting a council member of Valenzuela, Zavala, affirming the City of Oxnard to support for the House Resolution 786 and calls for an immediate ceasefire on the Israel-Gaza conflict. Council members, what's the pleasure of the committee? Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Turan.
I have been taking notes this evening and listening to everybody who speaks on, no matter where they fall onto the issue, the agenda item in front of us. And I still would like to thank everybody for coming out and exercising their right to speak to their local government on this agenda item. And a note that I made for myself, and I've heard folks say this a number of times, but it was especially spoken a number of times tonight, and it was the phrase, "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak." And I just wanted to say that everybody who came out tonight, speaking just for myself, you don't have to thank me for the opportunity to speak. That's your right to come out here and speak, regardless of your feelings on the issue, which side you land on, or if you're neutral on it, regardless of your age, gender, orientation, citizenship status. Everybody has that right, the constitutional right to come and speak to their local government. And so I appreciate folks who recognize that they have that opportunity to do that, but I also want to point out that that is a right, and I appreciate people exercising that right. That being said, I am disappointed that the acts of a few did thwart the right of people to come here and speak to their government and say their piece on this agenda item. And again, it's very few people who unfortunately undermine that for the majority at times, and tonight is an example of that. They certainly had their right. Many of them had their time, the 3 minutes that everybody else got to say their piece. And regardless of whether we agree or disagree, it is your right to say that. And we as elected officials up here, we signed up to hear that and listen and take those items into consideration. So for this item at hand, again, I took a number of notes. Councilmember Valenzuela Zavala brought it up at a council meeting recently and requested to be agendized. It was stated that this would be the process. That night, it was stated it would go to Finance and Governance Committee for consideration of forwarding to the full council. And that's how many items are processed in this, with this government body. Tonight, we had 2 other items. One of them, the same thing. It was vetted by this committee, forwarded to council. And so it's not the 3 of us deciding, is that good enough to happen or not? That's what the purpose of the committees are, is to vet items for the full council consideration. Lastly, speaking about divisiveness and where we are in our country, I will speak again as an individual saying that There's been divisiveness for quite some time now, and there was an entire administration, in my personal opinion, that actually stoked divisiveness. And I feel that personally, again, that we didn't benefit as a country from those 4 years and what happened during that time. Looking at this item that's in front of this city, though, or excuse me, in front of this committee, the idea of, this is international affairs, this is something that's beyond the city borders or the city jurisdiction. Prior to my being on council, this city council took on establishing a resolution that they are a safe city regarding immigration status and citizenship status for folks. And since being on council, we've also taken on issues such as support for our LGBTQ plus community and our Asian American Pacific Islander community and their safety and the increase of violence towards those populations. We took on reproductive rights as a resolution, which also brought out a major number of speakers on both sides of that issue. Again, that was their right. Many of them said, you shouldn't be going over this as a city council. Why are you even bothering with this item? It has nothing to do with local governance. All of those things I just talked about, and including this item tonight, regardless of where this is taking place, it is taking place. And I guarantee you there are people in the city, there are people you know, there are people you work with, there are people who are your neighbors who are directly affected by what's happening elsewhere in the world, including the item that's here tonight. And so I just hope that folks can think globally on that, because I'm of the opinion that atrocities and war and famine and lack of access to aid that's happening anywhere in this world is an injustice. And I've stated a number of times, and somebody had stated the same thing tonight. When I took the oath for this office, it was to defend the California Constitution and the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Thus far, we've had a lot of domestic issues. This is certainly an issue, again, that goes beyond this city's jurisdiction, the actual borders of the city, but it does affect everyone in this world and people in this community in one way or another. And I have had mixed feelings because of the behavior of a few that happened just a few minutes ago. But I had to, during our recess, just internally reflect on that and think that's the actions of a few. The item in front of us is the item in front of us. And the request is, do we send this forward for this full city council to consider on whether to call for a ceasefire and the ending of these atrocities, as well as referenced in the resolution, calling out anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and other forms of hate and violence that are affecting all those who are affected directly and indirectly by this. And thinking about that, and again, aside from the actions that happen here tonight, I am going to make a motion that we do forward this to council. Again, I'm hoping that if this does go forward, those who are watching tonight and have feelings one way or the other on this know that in this system, in this democracy we have, you have the right to come here and be heard, but everybody has that right. We can't shout down or jeer or drown out those just because they have an opposing view. And I hope if this moves forward, we have that in mind when this comes, if and when this comes forward to the full council for consideration. So knowing that we're a committee of 3 here, I will make the motion for the recommended action. I'll wait to hear if there are other comments or if I get a second, but those are my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
So your motion is to send it to the city council. Okay. Is there a second on this item? Well,
so, Mayor, a motion was made by Member Tehran that the requested item should be considered by the city council. And you as the chair called for a second, and there was no second.
So,
Therefore, there is no majority approval to move this forward. The motion doesn't go forward, and therefore no majority approval for the item to go to council.
okay, thank you for that item. So our next item on this agenda is item E, items for future agendas. Council members, any committee members?
No items, Mayor.
No?
No, thank you, Mayor. I did want to make a comment, though.
Okay.
I mean, and I know it might be a little bit too late since the item did not pass.
Not pass, good.
So if the city manager or the city attorney can just let me know if I did make a comment, that's fine. I think my silence spoke for me, but
We're still in the meeting, you can make a comment.
okay, thank you. I'm going to say very little as possible, not because I don't have a lot to say, but because it's been a very emotional night. This process that we do here and what we do here, it's local politics, and we are here to serve the entire community of Oxnard. And yes, there are resolutions that come to us because they affect LGBTQ, you know, our communities, and I would love peace around the world. I would love peace tremendously. But and again, I'm going to sound like probably a broken record. When we debate and when we don't agree with what the other person says, when we become rowdy and we've got to stop meetings, it is a reflection of all the anger and all the hate and everything else that comes along with it. In order for us, I believe, in order for us to have some healing, some peace, we need to be okay with respecting others' opinion and understanding that creating chaos only creates more hatred. And thank you for allowing me those few words.
Thank you, and thank you again to all the speakers. You know, as it was mentioned, you know, people have their constitutional rights to speak their concerns and so forth, but as was mentioned here before in the report, that the city council has set a policy in the past that potentially we don't take items other than local items into the agenda. So I believe that we need to stick to local policymaking for our people here in Oxnard, and I believe that peace is extremely important. There's two sides to every story, and I just want to share with you that we should continue actually working on some of the items that belong to the city, about homelessness and about parks and schools and housing and so forth. And this problem, unfortunately, there's two sides to every story. And there's two sides to every story. And so other than that, I agree with the council members committee members that I look for world peace. And I think it's important that here in Oxnard, we have world peace. And this, I do not want to divide the city, which I think is extremely important. As I mentioned before, I still believe that we probably have one of the best councils that I've ever worked with, and also administration that we have here. And we all have our sides and so forth, but I think it's important that we have peace in Oxnard and peace in the world. Thank you so much, and we are adjourned.